Have you ever felt truly unseen? Not invisible in a crowd, but invisible in plain sight, in a place where your dedication, your talent, your very essence was supposed to be valued? Tabia Fiedler knew that feeling intimately. At 31, she was a senior account manager at Apex Solutions, a name that once promised cutting-edge innovation but now felt like a tombstone for ambition. Her days blurred into a monotonous rhythm of endless emails, demanding clients, and the suffocating weight of an agency that systematically extracted every ounce of energy from its employees while offering nothing but hollow praise and meager compensation in return. Tabia was the engine, the silent, tireless force behind Apex's most lucrative accounts, the one who meticulously understood client needs before they even articulated them, who foresaw market shifts, and who consistently delivered results that astounded even the jaded executives. Yet, she remained a cog, interchangeable, overlooked in the grand machinery of corporate indifference. Her office, a cramped space with thin walls, offered little sanctuary from the constant hum of dissatisfaction that permeated the building. Her colleagues, once vibrant and hopeful, were now husks, their eyes dulled by the ceaseless grind. Tabia watched them, and a chill would settle in her stomach. She saw her own future mirroring theirs, a slow descent into weary resignation, a life defined by missed opportunities and unfulfilled potential. The agency's culture was a toxic brew of micromanagement and empty promises, a place where genuine talent was not nurtured but merely exploited until it withered. They spoke of family while treating their people as disposable resources. They lauded innovation but clung to outdated practices. They preached client focus but neglected the very individuals who built and maintained those crucial relationships. Tabia had tried countless times to advocate for her team, to suggest improvements, to bring fresh perspectives to the stagnant leadership. Each plea, each well-reasoned argument, was met with patronizing smiles, vague assurances, and ultimately, deafening inaction. Her ideas, often brilliant, were quietly co-opted, repackaged, and presented by others, the credit conveniently forgetting its true source. It was a slow, agonizing realization that her voice simply did not matter here, that her worth was not recognized, only taken for granted. The breaking point arrived not with a bang, but with a whimper. A particularly demanding campaign, a project Tabia had poured months of her life into, sacrificing weekends and evenings, was finally delivered. It exceeded all expectations, bringing in record revenue for Apex. Her reward? A terse email from HR announcing a new efficiency drive that would cut back on remote work flexibility and require longer in-office hours. It was a slap in the face, a clear message. Her dedication was not seen as valuable, only as a baseline expectation. In that moment, staring at the sterile words on her screen, something shifted within Tabia. A quiet fire, long banked, began to stir. The resentment, the exhaustion, the feeling of being continually drained without replenishment coalesced into a fierce resolve. She wouldn't just leave. She would leave on her own terms, with her dignity intact, and perhaps with a lesson for those who had so casually dismissed her. The agency, with its smug arrogance, had underestimated her not just as an employee, but as an individual. They believed their contracts, their corporate jargon, their sheer size, made them invincible. They believed they owned her future, her skills, her very ability to thrive. They were about to learn how profoundly mistaken they were. Her journey, she realized, was not just about securing a new job. It was about reclaiming her identity, her passion, her inherent value that Apex had tried so hard to diminish. It was about proving that true worth cannot be contained by cynical clauses or corporate walls. The decision made, Tabia moved with a quiet intensity. Her resignation letter, drafted with meticulous care, was a masterpiece of professional politeness, betraying none of the simmering indignation beneath its polished surface. She submitted it, watching the HR manager, Miss Schmidt, a woman whose smile rarely reached her eyes, read it with a dismissive air. Miss Schmidt, with her perfectly coiffed hair and a voice that dripped with condescension, looked up, a faint, almost imperceptible smirk playing on her lips. Tabea, she purred. We appreciate your contributions truly. But you know, we invest a great deal in our talent. There's a non-compete clause, quite robust, I assure you, buried deep in your original contract. Standard procedure, really. You signed it. It's quite binding. You won't be able to work for a competitor for at least 2 years. It's for our protection, you understand. Her eyes narrowed slightly, a hint of triumph glinting within them. So, while we're sorry to see you go, you'll find your options quite limited. Perhaps a sabbatical? Or a change of industry altogether? The words, delivered with a practiced blend of false sympathy and overt threat, were meant to crush Tabia's spirit, to remind her of Apex's perceived omnipotence. But Tabia, calm as a lake at dawn, simply nodded. Yes, Miss Schmidt, she replied, her voice steady. I am very familiar with the contract. Every clause, every subclause, even the footnotes. Miss Schmidt's smirk faltered just a fraction. There was an unusual calmness in Tabia's demeanor, a glint in her eyes that Miss Schmidt couldn't quite place. It was not anger nor defeat, but something far more unsettling. Quiet confidence. The meeting concluded swiftly. Tabia left, the HR manager's words echoing, a challenge rather than a deterrent. For months, while still performing her duties at Apex with unwavering professionalism, Tabia had spent her evenings poring over legal documents, consulting with obscure specialists, and dissecting the very contract Miss Schmidt now wielded like a weapon. The robust non-compete clause, like many aspects of Apex Solutions, was built on a foundation of presumed compliance rather than actual watertight legality. Tabia, with her knack for identifying hidden patterns and systemic weaknesses, had found the loophole. It wasn't a gaping chasm, but a finely tuned crack, a specific wording that rendered the clause unenforceable under particular, highly nuanced circumstances. Circumstances she had painstakingly engineered to meet. Her preparations had been thorough. New opportunities were quietly explored, discreet conversations held. She didn't seek just any new job. She sought a place that valued innovation, recognized talent, and fostered genuine growth. She found it in Horizon Innovations, a fast-growing rival firm located directly across the street from Apex. Horizon, led by Elias Thorne, was everything Apex wasn't: dynamic, forward-thinking, and genuinely invested in its people. Tabia had met with Elias Thorne several times, impressed by his vision and his genuine enthusiasm. He saw in her not just a senior account manager, but a strategic partner, a leader with untapped potential. The discussions were invigorating, a stark contrast to the stifling atmosphere she had endured for so long. She had accepted their offer, ensuring every detail aligned with her carefully discovered legal pathway. The very next morning, Tabia arrived at Apex Solutions precisely at 9, as she always did. She walked past the reception, through the glass doors, but instead of turning towards her old office, she kept walking. She walked out of the Apex building, a lightness in her step, the morning sun illuminating her purposeful stride. She crossed the street, a symbolic bridge from her past to her future, and walked straight into the sleek, modern lobby of Horizon Innovations. She wore a crisp blue shirt, the color of Horizon's logo, a deliberate, quiet declaration of her allegiance. Her old Apex lanyard, a badge of her past servitude, was long gone. Miss Schmidt, from her window on the third floor of Apex, happened to glance down, coffee cup halfway to her lips. She saw Tabia, vibrant and resolute, entering the rival building. The coffee cup clattered against the sill, spilling its contents, as Miss Schmidt's smug expression dissolved into a mask of disbelief and dawning horror. Tabia, meanwhile, stepped into the Horizon lobby, greeted by a warm, welcoming smile from the receptionist. The air here felt different, vibrant, electric with possibility. She was no longer Apex's employee, nor was she bound by their antiquated rules. She was a free agent, a formidable force, ready to unleash her true potential. The game, she knew, had just begun. Her first day at Horizon Innovations was a revelation. The open plan office hummed with a different kind of energy, not the strained tension of Apex, but a vibrant, collaborative buzz. People smiled, genuinely. Ideas flowed freely. There was a palpable sense of purpose, of collective ambition, that had been utterly absent in her former prison. Elias Thorne, Horizon's CEO, greeted her personally, a man with intelligent, earnest eyes and a handshake that conveyed respect. He was younger than Tabia, expected for a CEO, barely in his early 40s, but his presence commanded attention without resorting to intimidation. "Welcome, Tabia," Elias said, a genuine smile lighting his face. "We're truly thrilled to have you. Your reputation precedes you, even across the street." Tabia felt a warmth spread through her, a sensation she hadn't realized she missed until now. It was the feeling of being valued, of her expertise being acknowledged, not just her hours. Elias, while welcoming, was also shrewd. He was a man who had built Horizon from the ground up, and he understood the cutthroat nature of their industry. He knew Tabia came from Apex, a direct competitor, and while he trusted her intentions, he also observed her with a keen, analytical eye. He wanted to see her strategic mind in action, to witness the quiet brilliance she was rumored to possess. He had taken a calculated risk in hiring her, anticipating the fallout from Apex. The very next morning the call came, Miss Schmidt, HR head from Apex, her voice now a tight, furious whisper, contacted Horizon's legal department, threatening litigation, citing the non-compete clause. Horizon's legal team, already briefed by Tabia, responded with calm, precise language, referencing the very specific exception Tabia had unearthed. The Apex legal team, arrogant in their usual dominance, was caught off guard. Mr. Richter, the CEO of Apex, a man whose ambition outweighed his foresight, dismissed the legal wrangling with a wave of his hand. "Nonsense," he scoffed to Miss Schmidt. "Tabia Fiedler? She's just one person. A good account manager, yes, but hardly indispensable. And that non-compete is ironclad. She's bluffing. Horizon is bluffing. Let them waste their time. She won't poach anything. She barely knows how our systems work now that she's out." His voice was laced with a venomous mix of contempt and denial. He truly believed Tabia was just a replaceable cog, a worker bee who had dared to fly too high. He saw her departure not as a symptom of his own company's flaws, but as a personal affront, an act of disloyalty. Miss Schmidt, though still unnerved by Tabia's unexpected defiance, echoed his sentiment. "Perhaps, sir. She was always rather quiet, kept to herself, but very diligent." "Too diligent, perhaps. We'll simply strengthen our existing client relationships. She has no leverage now." They spoke of Tabia as if she were a forgotten file, an annoyance easily swept away. They were blind to the very talent they had squandered. Their skepticism, their casual disregard for her abilities, became Tabia's fuel. She heard the whispers from former colleagues, the derisive comments that filtered back through the industry grapevine. "Tabia's out. Good luck to her. She'll crash and burn. Apex made her. She's nothing without their name." This cynical gatekeeping, the dismissal of her intrinsic worth, only solidified her resolve. She wasn't just working for Horizon, she was working to validate every overlooked talent, every undervalued individual. Elias, observing Tabia in those initial weeks, saw a woman who moved with quiet confidence, who listened more than she spoke, and whose questions cut to the core of any issue. She wasn't flashy, but she was profoundly effective. He watched her interact with their internal teams, building rapport effortlessly. He saw the gleam in her eyes when she spoke of client strategy, a passion that had clearly been stifled at Apex. He began to understand why she was such a threat to her former employers. Her greatest asset wasn't just her skills, but her unwavering integrity and profound understanding of human connection. Apex's leadership, steeped in their self-importance, had mistaken her humility for weakness, her quiet strength for insignificance. They had underestimated the power of an individual who truly understood her own worth and who was prepared to fight for it. Tabia wasted no time in settling into her new role, her focus sharpened by the antagonism she now faced. She immersed herself in Horizon's culture, absorbing its innovative approach, its nimble strategies. She saw how much more effectively talent was leveraged here, how ideas were encouraged, not stifled. Her mind, long constrained by Apex's rigid structures, began to truly flourish. Her first major task at Horizon was to understand their existing client portfolio and identify new opportunities for growth. But Tabia, always thinking several steps ahead, also knew where Apex's vulnerabilities lay. She understood their largest client, Aether Corp, intimately. She knew their CEO, Mr. Alistair Finch, not just professionally, but personally, having spent years nurturing that relationship while at Apex. She knew Aether Corp's pain points, the frustrations Apex had dismissed as minor complaints: slow response times, rigid contract terms, a lack of proactive innovation, and a general feeling of being taken for granted. Apex, secure in Aether Corp's long-standing loyalty, had grown complacent. They saw the account as an unshakable pillar of their revenue. This complacency was their greatest weakness, and Tabea knew it. She began to craft a compelling, data-driven strategy for Horizon, specifically tailored to address Aether Corp's unspoken needs. It wasn't about simply offering a lower price. It was about offering superior service, genuine partnership, and a vision for the future that Apex had failed to provide. Her proposal was meticulous, detailing solutions to problems Aether Corp hadn't even fully articulated, demonstrating an almost prescient understanding of their evolving business. She collaborated with Horizon's design, tech, and marketing teams, weaving their strengths into a cohesive, irresistible narrative. Elias Thorne observed her work with growing admiration. He saw her ability to connect the dots, to translate complex data into actionable strategies, and to inspire her new colleagues with her quiet determination. She wasn't just good, she was extraordinary. Meanwhile, across the street, unease began to ripple through Apex Solutions. Whispers of Tabia's new role, initially dismissed as inconsequential, started to take on a more ominous tone. Mr. Richter, Apex's CEO, began to hear unsettling rumors from industry contacts that Tabia Fiedler was making waves at Horizon, that she was too close to their major accounts. He dismissed them, publicly, as paranoia. Nonsense, he'd declare in his booming voice. She signed a non-compete. She can't touch our clients. It's just Horizon trying to stir up trouble. But privately, a seed of doubt had been planted. He'd grill Miss Schmidt, demanding updates on their client retention strategies, scrutinizing their existing contracts with an anxiety he rarely displayed. He even had their legal team re-review the non-compete clause, only to be assured it was watertight. The irony was painful. The very people who had belittled Tabia now unwittingly feared her. Their fear, however, was still shrouded in arrogance, in the belief that their power, their corporate might, would ultimately prevail. They were like a fortress, confident in its impenetrable walls, unaware that the true threat had found a subtle, perfectly legal breach. Tabea, meanwhile, prepared for her grand presentation to Aether Corp, the client that represented Apex's crown jewel. She knew this meeting wouldn't just be about winning a contract. It would be a testament to the power of overlooked talent, a vindication of her own worth, and a direct challenge to the very system that had tried to silence her. The tension mounted, a silent, invisible battle being waged across a mere street, with the fate of two companies and the vindication of one extraordinary individual hanging in the balance. The day of the Ether Corp presentation dawned crisp and clear, mirroring the sharp clarity of Tabia's purpose. She walked into the boardroom, flanked by Elias Thorne and a small elite team from Horizon, radiating a calm confidence that belied the immense stakes. Across the table sat Mr. Alistair Finch, CEO of Ether Corp, a man known for his sharp intellect and even sharper business acumen, accompanied by his key executives. Mr. Finch greeted Tabia with a flicker of surprise in his eyes, then a polite, almost imperceptible nod of recognition. Their past working relationship, forged over years of Tabia's diligent service at Apex, now hung in the air, a silent acknowledgement of the history between them. Tabia began her presentation not with dazzling graphics or corporate jargon, but with a simple, profound statement. At Horizon, we believe true partnership is built on understanding, not just transaction. She spoke directly to Alistair Finch, addressing Ether Corp's specific challenges and aspirations with an insight that only someone with deep, empathetic knowledge could possess. She meticulously outlined Horizon's strategic solutions, demonstrating how their agile approach, cutting-edge technology, and client-centric philosophy directly addressed every single pain point EtherCorp had privately expressed about its current agency. She highlighted Apex's rigid contract terms, their slow response times, their tendency to deliver generic solutions rather than bespoke strategies. She spoke of the future, of innovation, of a proactive partnership that would propel EtherCorp forward. Her voice was steady, her conviction undeniable. She wasn't selling, she was sharing a vision, a better way. Elias Thorne watched her, captivated. This was the virtuoso he had sensed, the hidden gem now shining brightly. He saw the subtle nods of agreement from EtherCorp's executives, the way Mr. Finch leaned forward, his gaze fixed intently on Tabea. Her presentation wasn't just a pitch, it was a masterclass in strategic empathy. Meanwhile, back at Apex Solutions, Mr. Richter was enjoying a leisurely lunch, oblivious to the seismic shift occurring just across the street. He had received a brief update from Miss Schmidt that EtherCorp had scheduled a courtesy meeting with Horizon, just exploratory. She'd assured him. They're obligated to hear out competitors occasionally, but EtherCorp is loyal. They've been with us for years. His arrogance was a thick, impenetrable shield. He truly believed in the invincibility of Apex, in the power of their name, in the ironclad loyalty of their clients, reinforced by their watertight contracts. He saw the world through a lens distorted by his own success, convinced that anyone who left Apex was doomed to fail, and anyone who challenged them would be crushed. He even chuckled to himself, imagining Tabea, small and insignificant, trying to compete with the behemoth he had built. The dramatic irony was palpable. While he savored his expensive meal, Tabea was dismantling his kingdom, brick by carefully considered brick. As Tabea concluded her presentation, a hush fell over the EtherCorp boardroom. Miss Finch slowly leaned back, a thoughtful expression on his face. He looked at Tabea, a flicker of something akin to admiration in his eyes. Tabea, he began, his voice deep and measured. That was an exceptionally insightful presentation. You truly understand us, more than anyone has in a long time. He then turned to his own team. Gentlemen, I think we have a decision to make. The outcome was clear, unspoken yet reverberating through the room. Tabea had not just won a client. She had validated her own profound worth, demonstrating that true value lies not in the name of the company one works for, but in the talent, integrity, and insight one brings to the table, regardless of the perceived security of a non-compete clause. The stage was set for Apex's rude awakening. The call that officially severed EtherCorp's ties with Apex Solutions landed like a bombshell. It came directly to Mr. Richter's office, a terse, professional communication from Mr. EtherCorp's for Alistair Finch himself, informing Apex that EtherCorp was transitioning its business to Horizon Innovations, effective immediately. The news hit Mr. Richter with the force of a physical blow. His face, usually a mask of smug self-satisfaction, contorted into a furious disbelief. Impossible. He roared, slamming his fist onto his desk. Finch is loyal. He wouldn't do this. He can't. He immediately summoned Miss Schmidt, his voice cracking with a mixture of panic and rage. Miss Schmidt, already looking pale and flustered, had just received the same devastating news through her own channels. Sir, it's true, she stammered, her usual composure utterly shattered. They said Tabia Fiedler made a compelling case. They referenced our lack of agility and stagnant strategic vision, Mr. Richter's eyes bulged. Tabia Fiedler? That quiet, unassuming. She poached Aether Corp. How? What about the non-compete? His indignation was absolute, his sense of betrayal profound. He couldn't comprehend that his dismissive arrogance, his underestimation of her, had directly led to this catastrophe. He had treated her as disposable, and now she had proven herself indispensable, not just to a rival, but by taking away his most prized asset. He ordered a full-scale emergency meeting, gathering his remaining senior executives, who arrived with trepidation, sensing the company was on the brink. The meeting was chaos. Accusations flew, blame was deflected, but no one had an answer. Aethercorp was not just a client, it was the largest, the most prestigious, the one that lent Apex its credibility. Losing them was a death knell. The news rippled through the industry with astonishing speed. Competitors, sensing weakness, began to circle like vultures. Other clients, already quietly dissatisfied with Apex's declining service, began to make inquiries with Horizon and other firms. Within weeks, the once unshakable foundations of Apex Solutions began to crumble. One by one, more clients defected, revenue plummeted, stock prices tumbled. The arrogant, dismissive culture that had driven Tabea away now festered, creating an internal panic that paralyzed the company. Mr. Richter and Miss Schmidt, once the arbiters of corporate power, were now scrambling, their authority evaporating, their self-belief shattered. They tried to salvage relationships, offering desperate discounts and hurried apologies, but it was too late. The trust was broken, not just with the clients, but with their remaining employees, who saw the hypocrisy of leadership only responding to crisis, not proactively valuing talent. Meanwhile, at Horizon Innovations, Tabia's success was celebrated not with ostentatious fanfare, but with genuine appreciation. Elias Thorne personally congratulated her, his admiration evident in his eyes. Tabia, he said, you didn't just win a client. You demonstrated the power of true understanding, of putting the client first, of recognizing the value in every individual on our team. You've set a new standard for us. Her former colleagues at Apex, witnessing the rapid decline of their company, began to reach out to Tabia, not with resentment, but with a mix of awe and a desperate longing for advice. They saw her thriving, radiating confidence and purpose, while their own ship was sinking. Apex Solutions, the titan that had once felt invincible, was now a shell of its former self, brought low not by external market forces, but by its own internal rot, its arrogance, and its profound failure to see, and to value, the exceptional talent it had within its own walls. The antagonist, Mr. Richter, was forced to confront the direct consequences of his hubris, witnessing his empire, built on the backs of undervalued employees, collapse around him. The triumph was Tabia's, a quiet, powerful vindication of her intrinsic worth, a testament to the fact that true value, once unleashed, cannot be contained by cynical clauses or corporate walls. Tabea often found herself gazing across the street at the Apex Solutions building, its once imposing facade now seeming diminished, almost forlorn. It wasn't triumph she felt, not gloating, but a profound sense of vindication and relief. She reflected on her journey, the stark contrast between her old life and her new. At Apex, her brilliance was a secret, her efforts taken for granted, her very spirit slowly eroded. Here, at Horizon, her ideas were welcomed, her expertise celebrated, and her presence genuinely appreciated. It was a transformation from invisibility to influence, from being a cog in a machine to a driving force. The experience had taught her invaluable lessons about self-worth, resilience, and the true meaning of leadership. She realized that her difficult past at Apex wasn't a burden, but a crucible that had forged her strength, sharpened her resolve, and deepened her empathy. She understood, perhaps more acutely than anyone, what it felt like to be overlooked, and that understanding became a core tenet of her leadership style. The broader impact of Tabia's story resonated throughout the industry. News of EtherCorp's defection and Apex's subsequent rapid decline spread like wildfire. It served as a stark warning to other complacent agencies. Talent, if not nurtured, would find new ground to flourish, and loyalty, if not earned, would evaporate. The narrative of the undervalued virtuoso who brought down an arrogant empire became a modern fable, whispered in boardrooms and shared amongst disgruntled employees. It highlighted a critical truth, that the greatest assets of any organization are its people, and that dismissing their contributions, their potential, or their dignity comes at an immeasurable cost. Many of her former colleagues from Apex, those who had seen their company's decline firsthand, reached out to Tabia. Some were seeking new opportunities at Horizon, drawn by the vibrant culture Tabia now embodied. Others simply wanted to express their admiration, their regret at not having seen the rot within Apex sooner. They had learned a harsh, undeniable lesson about corporate culture, about the importance of speaking up, and about the true value of respect. They saw Tabia not as a defector, but as a liberator, a beacon of hope that change was possible, that their own worth was not defined by a toxic environment. For Tabia, this was the true victory. Not just her personal success, but the impact her story had on others, reminding them of their own power. She made it a point to mentor new hires at Horizon, ensuring they felt seen, heard, and valued from day one. She championed initiatives that fostered internal growth, creativity, and work-life balance, building the kind of company she had always wished Apex could be. She became a living testament to the fact that integrity, skill, and genuine human connection are far more powerful than any corporate clause or cynical strategy. Her journey was a testament to the idea that sometimes, the only way to truly find your worth is to walk away from those who refuse to see it, and to build something new, something better, on the foundations of your own unwavering belief. She proved that the hidden gem doesn't always need to be dug up. Sometimes, it simply needs to be given the freedom to shine. Tabia's ascent at Horizon Innovations was not just a personal triumph. It became a beacon for the entire organization, shaping its future trajectory. Elias Thorne, the CEO, often cited her story in internal meetings and public addresses, not just as an example of success, but as a living philosophy. He had initially hired Tabia based on her reputation and his perception of her potential, but her impact went far beyond his expectations. She wasn't just a shrewd strategist, she was a principled leader, transforming the very fabric of Horizon's operational values. Tabia didn't just join Horizon, Elias would often say, his voice imbued with genuine respect. She taught us how to truly see. She reminded us that the greatest competitive advantage isn't a clever algorithm or a massive budget. It's the untapped potential within our own people, the quiet brilliance that can be stifled or unleashed depending on the culture we cultivate. He himself underwent a subtle transformation, moving from a focused, driven entrepreneur to a more empathetic, people-first leader. Tabia's influence made him question not just what Horizon could achieve, but how they would achieve it, ensuring ethical practices and genuine employee well-being were at the forefront. Tabia used her burgeoning platform to advocate tirelessly for fair treatment, transparent practices, and the unwavering recognition of individual talent within the broader industry. She became a sought-after speaker, her voice calm yet resonant, delivering powerful messages about self-worth and resilience. Never allow anyone else to define your value, she would declare to audiences, her eyes conveying the profound truth of her words. Your worth is intrinsic. It is not granted by a title, nor is it taken away by a dismissal. It is yours, always. And the moment you truly believe that, the world shifts. Her leadership style at Horizon was a stark contrast to Apex. She fostered an environment where mentorship was paramount, where junior employees were actively encouraged to voice ideas, and where failures were viewed as learning opportunities, not reasons for reprimand. She implemented initiatives for skill development, mental health support, and flexible work arrangements, building a company where talent could truly thrive without burning out. Horizon's reputation soared, not just for its innovative work, but for its exemplary company culture. Talented individuals, disillusioned by the corporate cynicism prevalent elsewhere, flocked to apply. They saw Horizon as a sanctuary, a place where their contributions would genuinely matter, where they wouldn't just be an anonymous face in a sea of cubicles, but a recognized, valued member of a purpose-driven team. Tabea became a symbol, a living embodiment of the hidden gem who, once liberated, could transform an entire ecosystem. Her story reverberated, inspiring countless others to reevaluate their own situations, to demand better, and to trust in their own intrinsic worth. She didn't just get her revenge. She redefined success, proving that true power lies not in controlling others, but in empowering them, and, by extension, yourself. She had not only escaped a toxic environment but had actively built a better one, showing that the most potent form of resistance is creation, and the most profound form of triumph is liberation. So, what have we truly learned from Tabea Fiedler's incredible journey? Is it simply a story of corporate triumph, of outsmarting the system? Or does it run deeper, touching the very core of what it means to be seen, to be valued, to finally reclaim your own power? Tabea's story reminds us that true worth is not dictated by a company's hierarchy, nor by the smug dismissal of a gatekeeper. It is an inherent quality within each of us, waiting to be recognized, sometimes by ourselves, sometimes by a perceptive leader, but always, ultimately, defined by the strength of our own conviction. She was the overlooked virtuoso, a hidden gem polished by adversity, whose quiet brilliance shone brighter once liberated from the shadows of a complacent, uncaring system. Her difficult past at Apex didn't break her, it forged her into a beacon for change, proving that even in the face of cynicism and underestimation, intrinsic value will always find a way to emerge and assert itself. Her arc, from obscurity and profound underestimation to widespread recognition and empowerment, didn't just transform her own life. It became a catalyst for positive change in an entire industry. She proved that when an individual's worth is finally seen and validated, it doesn't just benefit them, it elevates everyone around them. It challenges the status quo, demanding that merit, empathy, and genuine respect triumph over prejudice and short-sightedness. Her journey teaches us that sometimes the most revolutionary act is simply to know your own value and to walk away from anything that diminishes it. It teaches us that the greatest strength lies not in clinging to what is familiar, but in the courage to seek a place where your potential is not just accepted, but celebrated. And it shows us that the perceptive authority figure, like Elias Thorne, is truly powerful not because they wield control, but because they possess the wisdom to see the hidden brilliance in others, and the courage to take a risk on it, transforming themselves and their organizations in the process. So, remember Tabea's story when you feel unseen, when your contributions feel undervalued, when you're told you can't or you won't. Remember that your potential is not bound by anyone else's limitations or cynical clauses. It is yours to define, yours to unleash. Share this story. Comment below with your own experiences of being overlooked or of finally being seen. Let it be a reminder to someone who needs to hear it. You are valuable, your talents matter, And sometimes, the greatest victory is simply walking across the street towards your true worth.